We all had an early vision of what our lives would look like, and then life actually happened. From marriage to motherhood, career dreams, and everything in between, this is Life Actually with Mary Bell. Yvette Peguero is the owner and founder of Evie's Cleaners. A proud first-generation Latina and oldest of four, Yvette knows a thing or two about grit, growth, and getting it done. She's a former corporate girly who worked over 10 years in sales and HR until a massive layoff on a random Wednesday in July of 2022 pushed her to take a leap of faith, and she hasn't looked back since. Today, she runs a thriving cleaning business built on excellence, care, and opportunity. Yvette's mission is twofold: to deliver an amazing service experience for every client and to create meaningful work opportunities for people who need it most in our local communities. But beyond the business, her biggest flex is being a mom and wife to her two favorite guys. Yvette is a fellow Circle networking group member, one I distinctly remember meeting on a rooftop in New Rochelle. She's fun to talk to, confident but approachable, with a smile that lights up a room, and I'm excited to get to know her even better. Welcome to Life Actually with Mary Bell and Yvette Peguero.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you so much for that. That was amazing.
You're welcome. And that was my favorite part. I like when I ask everybody to give me your bio, and then I try now to add a little bit of like my own, flair to it.
Yeah.
And I just honest and true remember, and this we'll start off with a bang here. I remember asking you when I met you, like, are you single? Because you'd be really great for my brother.
Yeah, I remember that.
And it just because I love, like, you have the most beautiful smile.
Thank you.
I just love, as I say this all the time, I try not to say it too much because I'm trying not to sound like I'm 20, but you're just a whole vibe. And you could tell that you're a hard worker, that you are a genuine person, and that you're just fun to be around. And those are my favorite things in people that I hang out with, and really people that I keep trying to bring on here.
Yeah.
Because it's important to have good conversation with people that I just I relate to, and I'm excited to get to know you better.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. No, I distinctly remember meeting you. It was actually at a Circle event, I think it was, right? We met at the rooftop, and I honestly was like so fascinated the fact that you're an author, and I was just like, that is amazing. I feel like it's almost a little bit of a dying art, and like to hear about your success thus far, and like we were just a few years into the business, and speaking of another woman entrepreneur, I just got so much out of that conversation. I mean, I think it was like love at first sight.
I really did. I felt that way, and obviously too, Italian American. When I'm suggesting somebody like, oh, my brother was single at the time, like that's a biggie too. And I knew you for about 37 seconds before I even asked you that. So I think that speaks loudly to that. But first, as always, I shout out Tony Peck because his Circle networking group, The Circle, it brings so many of us together.
So true.
And that is how we're here together.
Yep.
So if you are listening, if you're Westchester based or even New Jersey, Connecticut, anywhere around here, and you are a business professional or entrepreneur, I would highly urge you to get involved with Tony's group. There's 200 plus members now, but really genuine connections, and it like really brings people together like we are right now.
For sure. Absolutely. So. I 100% approve that message.
100% approved. We love Tony Peck.
We love Tony Peck.
Okay, so like I said, I'm Italian American. Everybody who's listening and knows me obviously knows that already. My books are an Italian American romance story. And what I am most proud of, the way that I grew up and, my heritage is just supreme emphasis on family, friends who feel like family. I love food. I love those good times. And obviously being Latina, like a lot of similarities there. So what I would love to know too, because you are really my first guest who I don't know like a lot of your like personal side. I've had 4 guests so far. I've known a lot about them. I don't know that much about you. So I would love to just hear about Yvette from like your early days, your heritage, your family life, all of it.
Yeah, so thank you so much for having me. So my name is Yvette. I am Puerto Rican and Dominican. I'm first generation Dominican American. And my father comes from Santo Domingo in Dominican Republic. My mother was born and raised a true Boricua New Yorker, like born and raised New York. But we come from San Juan and Santurce in Puerto Rico. And we grew up, actually, my parents left the Bronx early when I was young because they wanted to give us a better life. So my mother was like, nah, we're getting out of here. There's rats everywhere. I've got 2 kids under 2. Like, let's get out of this. So they moved us all the way up to northern Westchester in Croton. Croton on Hudson. Yeah. So I lived up there, and then we were living in Cortland Manor for a long time, and we lived in Yorktown. And then while I was in school, in high school, I was made sure that like I was in different clubs. I always did like the drama club. I always did like any kind of entrepreneurship stuff. I always had like a draw to that. I think it helps the fact that I'm the oldest of four. So I'm the first girl, which anybody knows that's a Latina. If you're the first girl, it's like your second mom, basically, right? Sometimes first mom at certain times if mom is working too. So it's like I've always had this kind of personality of like take charge, type A. I remember distinctly having a boyfriend one time being like, you need to be a little less type A and more type B. And I was like, nah, you're not passing the vibe check. Like, I can't be with you.
Yeah. Hard pass there.
You know, and like it didn't last much longer after that. But like this has always been my nature. And I think it has a large part to do with like, you know, seeing my parents work really hard, you know, seeing the struggles and tribulations that come with, you know, moving far away from family, even though we were only, 45, 50 minutes away from our family in the Bronx. But like, it made a huge impact, you know, for our family, and seeing that struggle, but also that hard work to know, okay, it's just us. I have nothing else. Our back is up against the wall. We got to make this happen or it's not going to happen. And like, you know, they were able to figure out how to buy a house and have a car and like have really good jobs and give us a really good education when like other folks were still stuck in the same spots. You know
Isn't
what I
it
mean?
interesting when you grow up that way? Because that's a very big similarity with Italian American. My family, my grandparents lived in the Bronx, and back in the day when they were growing up, like your great aunt or your aunt could be peering out the window and yelling at you on the street. If and my husband and I say this all the time, like my parents are at my house right now because the first thing you asked was, where's Marina?
Yeah.
So she's at home and my parents are there. My parents live in Jersey, so they drive almost 2 hours to come last night.
Wow.
They'll stay till tomorrow for me to be able to leave the house because, again, it's summertime, but she's not in full-time school yet. And we say all the time, when you lived more simply, like in the Bronx, and you have your family close by, it's so much easier for like, oh, hey, can you come over? I have to run to the grocery store.
Right.
Can you come do this? I have to get this done. So when your parents, essentially, they take you and they move you to Croton, 45 minutes to some people is like, okay, that's not that bad.
Nothing. But in the 90s,
Oh, yeah.
you know, that's
And
a
did
different
everybody
world.
have a car?
Not everybody had a car.
Exactly.
I'm pretty sure my mother had like this busted old car that used to break down all the time. I'm pretty sure there was one point I was really young and I remember like breaking down on Route 9 and like my dad having to like figure out how to come get us like in the middle of the night. Like it was like a whole
And
thing.
you
And
don't
it
have your
was
family
just
there.
us, you
Yeah.
know? But I think with that, it allowed me to be able to take some of those foundational pieces and be like, okay, you know, whatever happens. We have to make the best of it and we're going to proceed forward and prevail because that's what my parents showed me, you know, no matter what, we're going to make it happen.
My mother would love you because my mother's big on like pick yourself up, dust yourself off. Somebody's always got it worse and you
know?
just keep on moving.
I like your mom.
Yeah, you would, and she would love you too. So I totally relate to that. And as far as being the oldest of four, I read a quote a long time ago that basically was like, you could all grow up in the same household with the same parents, but not one of all the siblings will have the same like experience with their parents, because essentially what it's saying is that you will get different variations of your parents at different points of their life and different parts of their parenting journey, which I am the baby of my family and we have three. So it's my older brother. He's 6.5 years older than me, or 7 years older than me.
Is that the one you were trying to hook me up with?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, he's 47, so he's my husband's age. My sister will just turn 43, and I'm 40. I'll turn 41 in November. So I am the quote baby, and we say all the time, like, my brother, when he grew up, my parents lived in the Bronx in a small apartment where their bedroom was basically like in a living room. There was not a lot of room, not a lot of money. When we moved to Long Island, quote, going out to eat was like sometimes going to McDonald's.
Yeah.
And then the way that I grew up, my dad had gotten this great job opportunity. We moved to New Jersey, a big house, the salary where like his bonus is the same amount of his salary. So when I was in that like teenage year, I didn't experience anything where like we didn't have money. And when I say we, I mean my parents.
Yeah.
But, you know, and thankfully I didn't come out of that like a spoiled little biatch. I say all the time, like I was spoiled because they had the money to do things.
Right.
But it also was one of those things like I'm still not great at finances, because when I grew up learning about it, I didn't have a need or thought process for saving money.
Yeah.
I always worked. I worked in
Same.
restaurants and stuff like that. But it's very interesting because when you grew up in all three different types of life at that point, you have three very different siblings. So,
oh my God, that is like so accurate.
Yeah.
Because there's four of us. I grew up with the scarcity side of my parents.
Yeah.
And then there's a huge age gap between the two youngest ones. So it's like two in the front and two in the back, right? So it's my brother and I that we're basically Irish twins. We're like within the same week,
How
1
old are
year.
you?
I'm 36.
Okay.
And he's 35. We have the birthday in the same week.
Okay.
Or by 1 year. And then there's like a 6-7 year age gap between my sister, and then like only 2 to 3 years between the baby and her. So like that is what happened in our household as well. My brother and I grew up with like the scarcity side of my parents, and like, you know, they were in their early 20s. This is when people got married like at 19 and 20 years old. And then they're having kids right away. So like we were broke. They were trying to make it happen. And then all of a sudden, flash forward 10 years later, which is like what's happening now when a lot of folks are having children in their 30s now. And like, because you're a little bit more well off, you've probably saved a little bit, you're working a better job, you're having a family now. And they basically started over again with the next set. And they like live so different. They lived in a house. They weren't born in the Bronx. They don't know what it's like to not have, you know, a TV in every room.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it was very different. And for me, I was kind of numb to it all. I was just like living life. But as an adult looking back at it, and like I look at my son and I tell him some stories of like how I grew up, and he's like, what? What are you talking about? Like, of course we have this. I'm like, nah, B, it wasn't like that.
Back in my day.
Back in my day, which wasn't that long ago, but it makes me feel hella old. But like, it was so different. And it's just a few years that we're talking about.
I think about that all the time with Marina. It's like we have a ton of family and friends, and she's got so much stuff. Like, and it's really in a certain way just bad, because when you have that much stuff, toys in every room, multiple iPads, a phone, you have a TV, and you're like, you have to really focus on making sure that like she can entertain herself without a screen.
Yeah.
She's gotten great. Like I force like the Play-Doh, the coloring, the creative side, because that's important to me too. But you have to be on top of it, because when you have too many luxuries and like these extra things, like you don't want to make you don't want to raise somebody who's entitled and just expects it. And it's unfortunately we live in a time now where like
that's the norm.
It is.
It's the norm. And honestly, it's not even just her. It's us as adults too. I mean, how many times do you catch yourself doom scrolling? I catch myself doom scrolling all the time. And I'm sitting there like, what the fuck am I doing?
I have a ton of shit to do. What am I scrolling
What am I doing?
for?
Like, I have to do payroll. Like, stop it. You know? But it's that, you know, we have evolved to be in this time of life where it's like we can afford, thankfully, thank God, you know, some nice things. And it just kind of grows and goes into this new direction that all of a sudden you're like, wait, I don't want to raise a spoiled brat, but I'm kind of acting like this. Like, wait, I got to check myself a little bit more.
And then also when you're telling them not to spend too much time on the screen.
But yeah, I'm on the phone.
Which is hard though too, because like I especially work on my phone, and you're obviously making appointments and doing stuff on your phone as well. So there's a cross line there where like you're still working sometimes, and we're honest people. It sounds like there's other times where I could be scrolling through dumb stuff. And you have to catch yourself, because if you're telling your kid not to do it, like you should also not be doing it.
Exactly.
I was going to ask you before, because I was a big, huge fan of high school. I went to a great high school. You know, I was popular, but like with all the groups, I did not go to a high school where like this group didn't talk to that group, didn't talk to that group. And it was like very unhappy situation. Everybody really got along well, and I was super involved with like student council and sports and this and that. I truly loved it, and I know a lot of people don't have that same experience. Did you love your high school experience? And you said you did clubs and stuff. Like, which ones did you do?
I'm neutral. I liked high school. I wasn't like somebody that was picked on or had many issues. I was always involved in something. I just found that to be an outlet. And I also worked early on in my life. I started working when I was 14. So like between, you know, going to after school activity, going to school, and then going to my job, I kept myself busy. You know, that kind of goes back to what we were talking about before, just always like that hustler mindset. When I was in high school, I went to high school in Cortland Manor. And then my parents, particularly my dad, all of a sudden was like, yeah, let's move to Wilmington, North Carolina. I feel like selling the house and going. So this is like 2004. All of a sudden he's like, yeah, we're moving to Wilmington, North Carolina. So in the middle of high school, my end of 10th grade going into 11th, I moved cross country, and I hated it. And that's where it became hard.
Big difference,
That was where it became hard. It was like, not in my opinion the smartest move to move in the middle of high school. I understand that other people have it harder, where like maybe they're military brides and like they have to go, you know what I mean? But we didn't have to, but they did, and they tried. And it was for the intention of a better life and, you know, to get me into a good college out there. But the running joke with the friends I made out there was Yvette's going to come to graduation with a suitcase in her hand. And sure enough, like, so serious, I graduated on a Saturday, and I think Monday or Tuesday of that week, we all moved back to New York. Okay. Everybody hated it. It was like right before the housing crisis.
Okay.
I graduated class of 2006 in Elmsey Laney High School in Wilmington, North Carolina, which is the same high school, fun fact, that Michael Jordan went to.
Oh, cool.
Yep. And the same coach was still there when I was there. That didn't put him on the basketball team. Okay.
So if you're getting rejection, just keep going.
Just keep going, because Michael Jordan made it out of that high school, and he's Michael Jordan, the GOAT. Okay. So, and I'm Yvette Peguero, not the GOAT, but I made it to my own thing. But I say that to answer your question. High school was interesting because of that severe shift that happened in life, but it also taught me you're going to do hard things. You're not going to like them sometime, but there's always a lesson on the other side of it. So like, even though the mortgage crisis kind of happened pretty much after I graduated high school, in college, which is about the time we came back to New York, you know, it was a learning lesson for everybody. At my parents, myself. I'm now an adult, a young adult at that point. I'm like seeing what happened and what I don't like and what I was okay with. And like, you know, I was able to use that as a real foundation to say, okay, this happened in high school. These experiences happen here. And what am I going to do with it?
It's fantastic. And that's a big thing that I love as you age. Every like hump that you get over just makes you better in certain ways. Yeah. You know, it stinks while you're going through it. And then you can let yourself feel like, you know, woe is me. Sorry for yourself that you're going through X, Y, Z. But when you make it through those times, at the other side, you're like, wow, I am now smarter. I am now stronger. I now have the experience, the wisdom to not either do something again or not allow yourself in a situation again or just keep getting better because of it. Yeah. And that's wild to me in the middle of high school. Mom and Dad, what were you thinking?
You know, it was like, when, you know, I get it. I do, looking back at it, I'm like, okay, I get the concept of starting to kind of plan the idea was supposedly that, you know, if we move to North Carolina or we move anywhere a couple years before I graduate, I was just going to I don't know where he got this idea, but I was just automatically going to go to like UNC or UNCW. Okay. And it was just his hope and dream without asking me or anybody else, hey, what do we all see for the future? What do we all want? What do you want to do? It was just like a one-person show, and then it ended up blowing up kind of on everybody's face, but with lessons learned. Like, you have to make sure you read the room. You have to make sure everybody's okay with this. Do you understand what this can look like? Do you understand the bad that could happen plus the good? You know, it wasn't all bad being out there. I mean, amazing beaches, a cool town, you know, and now as an adult, I'm like, I would probably go visit maybe once or twice just to check it out. I know they've developed a lot, but you know, it definitely put a strain on the family for a little while. And it was like high school, man. It was like the middle of high school. I'm like 16. I know it all, you know. And then like my parents are like in their 30s and early 40s. They know it all, right? So it's like this constant battle. Yeah. And it
now
was
are they back in New York?
So no. They actually, I don't think New York is for them. So we came back to New York. They were in New York for a long time. And then they moved to Florida when I graduated college. And they lived in Florida for a long time in South Florida. And now they're in North Carolina, but in a different part. They're in Winston-Salem, and they have like a really beautiful...
So they had that in their heart.
That's in their heart. Yeah. But that's the key. That's in their heart.
Not yours.
Right. So my heart right now as an adult and have my own family is to see my son through. He's now entering high school. Wow. He just graduated middle school last week. Thank you. And, you know, just... I ask them, and having that open conversation, where do you see yourself? Mm-hmm. Do you want to stay here? Do you want to go somewhere else? I'm not saying I'm going to follow you to wherever you go, but, you know, I'm here as your parent, as your guide.
That's a total necessity. And I was going to ask before too, where did you end up going to college?
So I started college at WCC because we were flat broke, and, you know, all that moving costs a lot of money, you know, and getting out of whatever debts and stuff like that. So I did my first 2 years of college at WCC. That's where I met Kevin and my husband. And then I went to College of Mount St. Vincent in Riverdale, New York, and I graduated with my bachelor's in business.
Okay, and then you got into sales and HR. How?
So while I was in school, started working for Verizon, corporate Verizon, and I was working in the corporate stores selling phones and different phone plans and stuff. I was there for many years, for about almost 6 years, and then after that, I said, okay, I have to get out of retail. I have to do something different. Yeah. And I went into New York Life of selling life insurance, and I did that for a while, I should say, and I really developed my sales skill there. I worked at one of the offices in Manhattan, and I needed to find people. I mean, at this point, I'm 24.
Okay.
I don't have a network. I don't have a base. So I literally would take the train down to Union Square, and I would stop people in the street. So serious. And I would be like, and it was like, I had like this formula in my head. Like, if you look like the baby, you're probably the mom. If you don't, you're probably the nanny. So if you look like the mom, you probably need life insurance to be able to cover an event of your death. But if you don't, and you look like the nanny or somebody else, do you have a retirement plan set up? And that was my approach. And I would get people's name and contact information that way and try to get some appointments that way. And that's really like that diving in, that kind of blueprint is really what I've continued now.
Yeah.
Is what I use now. I literally just throw myself in there.
To get your accounts. And you know what, your personality is just, it's like an engaging one and like draws people in. And it's a genuine thing too, because I hate sales where like people are just trying to sell you something or get involved with something they know nothing about you or they cannot find a way to relate to you. And it's a complete turn off.
Yeah, no, I always wanted to be approachable. I always wanted people
that was the first thing that I said. Yeah, you were confident but approachable.
Thank you. Like, like it's scary, like having somebody just randomly show up to you or come up to you, whether it's a controlled environment like a networking event or me just stopping you in the middle of Union Square, right? Like, you need somebody to feel that you could feel safe with immediately.
Right.
And I strive for that. I want people to know that I'm a safe person. Whatever.
Well, and especially we'll get into your cleaning business, but and actually I'll save it for then because I never had a cleaner, and then now I run out of time, and so I do it very infrequently because it's another thing that's just on the financial thing of like what can I afford and what I should be spending money on, my husband and I. But my biggest thing was, how do I trust somebody coming into my home? Like, and I'll talk about that later. Yeah. But all of it, it's amazing how it relates to each other. And one of the questions I had was that mid-20s can often be a period of nothingness, like the kids who want to find themselves and they're traveling, which I think the 20s is a great time to travel because when I got out of college, I did event planning. I was 21. And for 2 straight years, I traveled domestically, but like on somebody else's dime, to states that I probably would not have gotten to on my own, and different hotels and food, and met a ton of people. So it was awesome, but it was a job and I was getting paid for it. Okay. So, and not that I have anything against, the quote youth of today going and finding themselves, but I feel like oftentimes you're either in that sort of like finding yourself territory, or it's super transformative and people leave college and their boots are on the ground and they're just like, I know what I want to do. I know what I want to start trying to do. Yeah. I want to make money. I like very career oriented. And it sounds like that is you for sure.
Yeah. Right? All of the above, and then loop in, I got married and got pregnant at 22.
Okay.
So now all of that, I'm trying to find myself. I'm trying to build my career. I'm this strong, independent woman, this working girl, and boop, I've got a baby. Oof. And I've got a husband. And all of a sudden, I've got responsibility. So it was definitely a challenge. But, that was just life. And I didn't look at it at the time as like, this is so hard. I hate this. I just looked at it as like, well, my parents did it. My parents were young, 20-year-olds, something that got married and had children, right? People, and had 4 kids. Like, I can manage one, right? But I knew that I needed to take that time to develop my skills. I knew nothing. I always came into it being like, I don't know anything. And I would tell people in my interviews whenever I was going for a job, I don't know all the answers, but I know how to do something. And I'm not here to reinvent the wheel. I'm here to sharpen it.
Or you'll figure it out.
Yeah. We'll figure it out as we go. Yeah. It's like the scrappiness in me that I've got responsibility. So I'm not like your regular 20-year-old straight out of college, just partying every weekend. I got to go home and feed my kid. Yeah. So immediately that sets me apart, right? Because now it's not that I'm just this young, woman that's trying to figure this out. I have to make this happen.
Right.
There's literally a whole nother person that depends on me.
That's amazing. In the time, your mindset is great because I don't even think you were, quote, feeling sorry for yourself at the time. You were just like, all right, I have this that I have to take care of, and I'm going to go take care of it. And it basically sharpens you, like you said, into this person who just takes care of shit. And you don't, it doesn't sound like you complain about it. You just get it done. That's my favorite. If you didn't listen to the episode with my best friend, Lauren, she's an executive coach. We talk about that a lot. About like, you're going to come into contact with different situations and different people in life that you're like, this is not serving me.
Yes.
And all right, let's not complain about it. Let's just go figure out a way to be better.
Yep.
But when you mentioned Kevin, that's your husband. So your boyfriend in high school that wanted you to be like less of a type A person, what kind of guy is Kevin and what does he help bring out of you or support?
Kevin's super cute and handsome. I've always thought that from the day I met him. Kevin, so just a little background. I'm Puerto Rican, Dominican. Kevin is Trinidadian Indian. Okay. So I saw him in class and I was like, this guy is cute with his gray eyes. And he had like all this hair and everything. Super handsome, but in regards to like how he supports me and how we work together, we're like really yin and yang. And he's actually the one that's pointed it out to me many times. I'm the type of person that goes into a room, I have no problem talking to people, and he's a little bit more reserved. Okay. But he pays attention to things, and he's like, did you hear about this? And I'm like, no, I didn't. So he's got the ears pointed up, sonar the situation, and basically spilling the tea to me while I'm in the forefront of the band, doing all the conversation and making stuff happen. But he is a real anchor for the household, for sure.
And I write romance, obviously, so I love the connections between supportive partners, spouses, all of that. What does a romantic night look like for you and Kevin in the midst of you being a very busy business owner?
Honestly, we like places like Newport. We like taking like a 2-day trip to Miami. Okay. That's like our time to just be like, all right, we're out of here. Like, take him to grandma's house in the Bronx, and my mother-in-law still lives there. And we're just gonna, have a quick, 72-hour flight.
Yeah, a few days.
It's just a few days rewind, just be together, because oftentimes we still in this day and age are apart a lot, just because he works long hours and I'm in the fields constantly, and then I take care of Sohan primarily, like with picking him up, dropping him off, and things like that for whatever. So it's nice to be able to reconnect that way and just turn off our phones and actually just go to dinner and talk.
I was gonna say, do you find it hard? Because I find it hard, and Jay and I work through this a lot. You're a business owner, so you never really fully turn off. So when you're spending that time together, is it like an act? Like, do you just put your phone away? Like, how do you guys manage that? Because it's super hard for everybody that I know.
I think it's important to actually put it away.
Put it away. Yeah. So it's out of sight, out of mind.
And even in the day of, I have an Apple Watch today. I'm not wearing it, but I normally wear my Apple Watch. And the few times I don't wear it, I almost feel like I have Apple Watch phantom syndrome. Phone, like I'm constantly like, what is this beep? And I'm like, it's not beeping. I don't even have it. But I think the key is to, even if it's just an hour, just put it away, put it on do not disturb, put the restaurant mode that, if you put a reservation in your calendar, at least with iPhone, sometimes I'll pick up, this person's at a dinner reservation, and they'll shut it down, or like put it on do not disturb for that time period. Do it. I know that you're trying to capture every sale, but the reality is, and I've learned this, in order for us to really scale and grow the business, I have to delegate some of those tasks out to other people so that I can be able to buy back some of my time.
And also just not have burnout. Like,
Come
like Thursday, Friday, and I'm big on social media. I love it. I love connecting with everybody there, and especially whether it's books, now the podcast, like children's book coming out. Like, I need to be there, and I need to be there frequently. But come Thursday, Friday, I'm like, I cannot fucking look at this phone anymore.
Yeah, and
that's also why I'm a reader, but like I hate reading on a Kindle because I don't want to look at a phone or an electronic device anymore. I want a book. But
do you like audiobooks then? Can you do that?
I don't know.
No. You like the actual physical holding of a book.
And I'm a noise person. I think I'm like a true Scorpio. When I'm on, I'm on. And when I'm not and I don't want to socialize, I'm done.
Yeah.
So I like quiet. Like when I'm reading, I just want supreme quiet. I want my book. I don't want a screen like old school.
I hear you.
But I love the piece with the supportive husbands and stuff, because it's hard. And I think the things in life that make our tasks easier, they also take away from the basic connection. But I love all of this, as it'll segue into basically how did we get to Evie's Cleaners, which will be our part 2 episode. So I say this all the time, but in case you're new, because you're here for Yvette specifically, every episode is broken up into a part 1, part 2. So this was Get to Know Yvette Peguero, which I think we have. You're as wonderful as I thought you were from the rooftop.
I came to the right room today.
And then in part 2, which will be out in a week, we'll talk more about Evie's Cleaners, being a businesswoman, a mom, just all of the things with our new favorite lightning round, which Dave and Tony did. And it's one of my favorite things to do now because it's completely random and kind of really fun. So
I'm super excited about the lightning round.
Yeah. All right. So stay tuned for next week, lightning round and a bunch of other stuff with Yvette Peguero. Bye. Thanks so much for tuning in. Like, subscribe, share, follow the full journey on social media at the handle mary.bell.books. And if you have need for audio-visual content creation and recording services, Cayi Visions is located in Stamford, Connecticut, and can also be found on Instagram at CAYI Visions.